New polling out of that Peach State shows that Democrats lead in both the Senate and gubernatorial races. In the race for the Senate, the AARP poll of likely voters shows that Democratic incumbent Jon Ossoff has a 9-point lead over his Republican challenger, Congressman Mike Collins. Ossoff also leads Collins by 20 points among independents and by 30 points among voters aged 18 to 49. In the open gubernatorial race, Democrat and former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms edges out billionaire Rick Jackson by 2 points, which is within that poll's margin of error. So that's close. Support in that race is split sharply by both age and gender. Bottoms leads by 23 points among younger voters, while Jackson has a 13-point advantage among voters over the age of 50. Jackson also leads among men by about 19 points, while Bottoms holds a 20-point advantage among women. I will say a couple of senior Democrats I've talked to in recent days like Bottoms' chances there. They think that certainly Democrats shifting in a good direction for them. But Sam Stein, let's go to you about the Senate race in particular. Jon Ossoff, 9 points. That's legit in a state that not long ago was solidly red, has now become more of a purpley swing state. And it speaks to the political environment, to be sure, but also Ossoff's talent, as many think that if he were to win this November, particularly by a margin like that, people will already start talking about 2028 for him as well.
Well, just one note of caution. That poll was taken before Trump attacked him as Pinky Herman, not Pee Wee Herman, accidentally.
Yeah.
So,
you're right. Never mind.
You don't know how the numbers will change when the Pinky Herman attack comes in. It's a remarkable thing to watch Jon Ossoff ascend to these heights. A few years ago, he was a congressional candidate a few years ago in Trump's first term, and he had made a fairly spectacular run, but fell short. And now he's this kind of electoral Goliath here, and I'm not going to get into the 2028 speculation because for my own sanity, I don't want to do it. But to Peter, it does say something about the changing political tides that Ossoff is doing this. That Georgia looks, according to these polling data, to be trending Democratic. We've had a number of polls this week around the congressional generic ballot that show good times for Democrats. Everything is, around the spectrum, but it does seem like Democrats are shaping up for a good run, including in North Carolina, Georgia, and other parts of the South. Actually.
Yeah, no, in fact, I thought that Fox poll the other day was really fascinating on the enthusiasm gap, right? That 68% of Democrats say they are extremely enthusiastic about voting this fall versus like 57% among Republicans. And it's a 20-point gap if you take out the MAGA base. In other words, between Democrats and non-MAGA Republicans, there's a 20-point gap in enthusiasm. They are not happy with the choice they made 2 years ago. They held their nose. They decided to give Trump another shot, and they don't seem to be happy about it. Now, who knows, right? It's only July. Anything can happen. The economy could take a good turn or a bad turn. But I will, your sanity I'm worried about. My sanity I'm less worried about. I will say that the Ossoff thing is fascinating. I was with a group of college-age kids the other day, not kids, young people, asked them which Democrat they found most exciting, and Ossoff was the one they all talked about. So that gap in age in that poll in Georgia tells us something, too.
John, I'm curious. It strikes me that what's happening in Georgia is not so different as what's happening in Arizona, which is you have swing states where MAGA is nominating Republican candidates, and they are having trouble with indies. I mean, when you look at those polls, indies are not buying it. They're not MAGA voters. And so in a swing state, MAGA really helps Democrats. Are you seeing that, and where are you seeing that? And do you think I'm getting high on my own supply here?
No, I think that's clearly a dynamic here that's important. And Molly, in Georgia in particular, it was worth saying, Georgia is a purple state. It's not a blue state yet. And the most successful Georgia Republican, who was the one person who's defied Donald Trump, was Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp, part of what happened in this race with Ossoff, and it's worth going back to think about this, when people talk about what were the blue states that Democrats were at risk of losing, there was a reason why a year ago people thought that there was a chance they would lose Georgia, which was that people thought Brian Kemp was going to run for governor or run for senator. Brian Kemp had challenged Jon Ossoff to be a very different picture. Instead, he decided not to run for Senate, and then the party decided to go with Not the candidate that Brian Kemp endorsed, but the candidate that Donald Trump endorsed.
Right.
Voters say Democrats are doing a better job on the issues of income inequality, health care, inflation, the economy, and foreign policy. It's a lot. Republicans do hold the advantage on crime and national security, although those are pretty closely divided. And yet, when it comes to immigration, Trump's signature issue, Republicans had an 8-point edge just a few months ago. But today, Democrats are preferred there as well. Meanwhile, 76% of those polled see the economy as only fair or poor, while just 24% say it's excellent or good. Meanwhile, 68% of Democrats say they're extremely motivated to vote in November. That's an 11-point edge on the percentage of Republicans who say the same. Let's bring in politics bureau chief and senior political columnist at Politico, Jonathan Martin. J. Mart, good to see you. Let's start with that enthusiasm answer. I mean, it's not surprising, considering how, in the eyes of Trump's base, or at least portions of his base, he's disappointed them in terms of his promises to fix the economy. He's disappointed them in his promises to avoid foreign wars as the Iran conflict continues to rage. And for some, he disappointed them in not being transparent in handling of the Epstein files. So Democrats are fired up right now, and that enthusiasm gap could play a big difference in November.
I'd add one more element, John. He hasn't forged the kind of legislative record or offered the sort of proposals for his final 2 years that may give some grist to his party for wanting to show up. I mean, if you think about it, the biggest bill that he's signed so far this year is one he wouldn't even sign, which was the housing legislation that the Congress passed. That he was so angry about the SAVE Act, he wouldn't even sign it. It still became law. Other than that, they're running on an extension of the 2017 tax cuts that they extended last year. And there's not much else besides, obviously, calling the Democrats extremist or communist, as Trump says. So he's not giving his base much in terms of what he's done. He's not proposing a lot to give them a reason to show up, to give members of Congress 2 more years or 6 more years for senators. And there's just this trend, John, as you know well from covering it for a decade, in which when Trump is not himself on the ballot, Democrats tend to do better because they show up with anti-Trump enthusiasm, and those who are Trump enthusiasts don't show up without his name bringing them out on top of the ballot.
Okay, so, J-Mart, answer this riddle for me then. We see that enthusiasm gap which favors the Democrats, and yet poll after poll shows us how unpopular the Democratic Party is as well. Even amongst Democrats, they're not happy with the party at the moment. So how do you square those two things?
Because every major institution in American life is unpopular right now, especially the 2 major political parties, but also because Democrats have what you guys can relate to. When the home sports team is losing, even the fans are mad at the team. And so if you ever listen to sports talk radio, the folks calling in are often the biggest fans of the team. They're the ones who are the most ticked off. And I think Democrats right now suffer from being disdained by the right for all the obvious reasons. Their own enthusiasts are mad at them for losing to Trump in the first place, or second place, I should add. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the broader swath of independent voters who are uneasy about Democrats because of the Biden-Harris experience and because of just not trusting them on a lot of policy issues. It doesn't leave a lot of positive sentiment around the political spectrum. But what matters in midterms is more negative energy than positive energy. Mm-hmm. And the party that can rally people against the opposition is the party that typically wins.
An economic perspective.
Well, be conservative and say it's a 9 because it is at one level, and you guys are going to get into this, that it makes impossible the economic promises the president made. And he has the ability at least, to go and give speeches and pretend that he's hitting all the marks that he promised, that we're in a golden age and things are better than ever. This obviously counteracts that. Anyone who's paying for anything fixes in their mind that, we're still at war with Iran. This must be the reason why these prices are out there. The president can move on from crises. The voters can't. The other level of this is that it has been divisive for the Republican Party. Now, Republicans have spent a couple weeks exploiting the divisions between Democrats on Israel that I think has been a smart strategy. That is playing out organically. They're exploiting it. Their own base is following the president most places, but unhappy about the war in Iran. And a lot of their strategy this year is going to be, Republican strategy, exciting as much of the Trump vote in 2024 as possible. They're going to have that convention in Dallas, which has not happened in decades, to do that. They do have a giant chunk of their base. We're just not paying as much attention to it right now because of the Democrats. A giant section of their base that is frustrated about this war in Iran, that is not answering the phone calls, not going to go back, knock on doors. So in both ways, economic ways, political ways, it hurts the president's mission of saving the Congress.
What's your thought, Ahmed?
I mean, when it comes to this war, if only Trump had listened to all the advice coming from not only his own advisors, but the pundit class, the media, we were all warning this war was going to be
Forget us. How about experts?
Yeah.
How about NATO allies?
Exactly.
I'm not asking you to listen to a pundit. I'm asking you to listen to your own intelligence.
Exactly. When it comes to the economy, Americans are really clearly seeing the connecting the dots. There's a through line between the costs that the Iran war has cost the U.S. taxpayer, from the $37.5 billion to the upper estimates of up to $100 billion. There's a direct through line from that to what was not spent on renewing the Affordable Care Act enhanced subsidies, right? They can see that money's being spent in this war and not being spent to improve their affordability crisis, right? And then they also see, while Trump's making these reckless moves, they're seeing the gas pump. They don't need to look at